Hello and welcome. My name is David Cupid. I'm a Director of Solution Engineering for Devo in Asia Pacific. Welcome today to our showcase. Today we're going to walk through a little bit about who Devo is, what we are, and show you a bit of a demo. But first, Devo, we're a cloud-native logging and security analytics platform. And today on the agenda, it's very, very brief. We've only got 30 minutes. Thank you for taking 30 minutes of your time to come and see us today. The agenda is very simple. We're going to very briefly do an overview of Devo. We'll then run through a demo, and I intend to spend the majority of the time today going through the demonstration to give you an idea of one part of the function of what we can do. We're not going to go into the whole of Devo. We're going to focus on a specific area that we believe highlights some of our very powerful differentiators compared to other products on the market. We'll then very briefly talk about the value again and the licensing structure, and we'll talk about how you can get in touch. So Devo is a cloud-native security and analytics platform. And what our customers tell us when they come to Devo about their existing or old legacy platforms is these four very basic generic things. First of all, our customers tell us their old tools had to have a lot of data compromises because of certain things around the way that the products worked, the way that you had to implement or put infrastructure in place, or the costing of licenses or infrastructure. They had to restrict how much data they could actually bring into the platform. Now, if you're not bringing all the data into your platform, how can you do all of your security analytics correctly? The other thing they told us was often they had very, very short retention times on that data. Maybe only 7 days. I've talked to customers that have told me 7 days. Some tell me 30, some 90. And a lot of those data compromises come from that second bucket around cost. It's just too expensive to run a lot of the legacy platforms because they were built in a different era where you had to implement infrastructure on premise. And with that came a lot of cost of hardware, of operating systems, of different databases, operational teams to run it, support, license costs, etc. Very, very costly. Even when those tools went to cloud, they were really only hosting the same mess in the cloud, and you still had to pay for it. Additionally, with costing, our customers have told us that their old tools the costs were not predictive. They couldn't tell month to month what sort of cost they were going to have. 1 month it would be high, another month it would be lower. They also told us it was very, very slow to ingest the data and slow to run queries. And finally, they told us that they needed highly skilled experts to run the platform, whether it be administrative platforms, users to actually administer the platform, or users actually trying to get data analytics out of the platform. They needed to have proprietary coding language expertise, and they needed also an assumed knowledge of the data set. Otherwise, they could be writing code to query the data and be pulling the wrong information or getting no results. And the way Devo resolves these major problems is again in these four buckets. We have a zero data compromise capability. We're cloud native and we leverage a lot of the benefits that come with being on the cloud, which is, we can scale out the infrastructure, whether that be the speed of ingestion or the speed of queries from a user or the amount of data we need to store. So we can store all of your data at a very low cost, and we can store up to 400 days of hot data. We're very disruptive on our economics and speed and scale. Being cloud native again, we're leveraging the really low cost that cloud native tooling provides us, and we're passing those savings on to you. So with near real-time ingestion, we're really disrupting the speed capabilities of analytic platforms, and we're giving you very low TCO because you don't have to administer infrastructure. You don't have to have operational teams. That cloud native flexibility allows us to bring in on-premise and cloud data very, very easily. There's no hardware costs associated with Devo and very minimal administrative tasks required. And really beautifully, we have this multiple use case capability as well. All of the data that you bring in, you can do whatever you want with. So with a single data set, you can do whatever use case you want to do, whether it be security, whether it be AI ops or IT ops types use cases. You can bring all of your users in, whether they be highly skilled data scientists right down to business analysts or database administrators. And you can ask any question you want, and we don't limit that based on our licensing structure, which we'll talk about later. So Devo has been around for over 12 years. We spent the first 4 or 5 years just developing the core Devo platform. And that's the first lower box you see there with the 4 areas inside it. The platform does our collection, our storage, our analysis, and our visualization. We spent about 4 or 5 years really trying to build out a platform that solved the major problems that we saw in the industry, which is speed and scale. And once we developed a platform that allowed us really impressive speed of ingest and analysis of the data, as well as the problem of data retention and data storage capabilities, we then started building on top of that. And you can see the 2 boxes we've built on top. We've built out what we call an autonomous SOC suite. So on top of that analysis platform, we're building out our SOAR capabilities, our abilities to do autonomous hunting. Okay, we found an alert, now what? Let's go and build an attack story about what that is. We have the MITRE ATT&CK capabilities associated with everything we do, risk-based alerting and very powerful security operations platform, machine learning workbench, and a SciSec alert team. So we have a team within Devo that's building out alerts and loading them onto the SaaS platform for you to come along and ingest into your domain. On the right is our community side of the world. We call it Devo Exchange. And this is where you can bring in content. You can bring in dashboards, which we call active boards. You can bring in alerts. You can bring in curated detections, etc., into your environment and bring them into that collection, storage, analysis phase. We won't go into this too much, and I encourage you to come and talk to us if you see anything on this next list of 10 steps that you want to talk more about. But this is really our idea of the things that you need to put in place to get to what we call autonomous SOC. And it's not about removing your analyst from your SOC. It's about bringing in not just automation, but a second brain of autonomous thinking, autonomous hunting capabilities to actually complement your analysts and actually get rid of a lot of the mundane, repetitive activities that they do on a day-to-day basis. So we talked about bringing in any data from on-premise or from the cloud. And we do that very, very easily. So from that on-premise side, which is at the top on the left, all the syslogging or whatever flavor of data that you want to bring in, we can push that through multiple mechanisms, including what we call a Devo relay, which will then forward all of that activity, all the logs into the Devo platform. If you're running an endpoint, a laptop or a desktop or a server, and you don't have EDR or there's other things on there that you want to actually bring into the security analytics, we can deploy a Devo agent onto those endpoints, should you want to. And then we can bring in your Windows logs, we can bring in file writes, DLL loads, DNS entries, whatever you need to be bringing into the Devo platform, should you not be already collecting it and detecting it through an EDR tool or an NDR tool. And if you're in the cloud, it's even easier. We deploy and run on our platform a cloud collector, which will just reach into your cloud and pull back the logs and put them into the Devo platform very, very simply, very quickly. So that is enough about the Devo background of who we are and what we do. We're a cloud-native logging and security analytics platform. And what we do is we bring speed and scale and very, very low cost comparative into your security world. So let's talk about what we can do from a demo today. So we're going to show you the speed and scale of Devo. We're not going to show you every function that's available in Devo. We're going to focus on one specific part of Devo. Now, I've come up with a scenario to walk us through a bit of a day in the life. And that scenario is we're going to have some threat intelligence team within our organization has notified us that Russian threat actors are targeting similar companies to us. So maybe we should be looking at that type of attack. And so we're going to do a hypothesis-driven hunt, and we're going to look for IP connections from Russia with known threat intelligence. So for example, a threat score. So let's go ahead and switch now to our demonstration. I'm going to share my screen, my tab. So in your view that you're looking at, you may see that the demonstration window pops up very small to the left. There is a button there you can click that will then maximize that to make it easier for you to view. So this is the Devo platform. Here is the landing page. You can make the landing page whatever you want to. But here we're seeing all of the logs that are coming in, all the different log types that are coming in, how much events coming in over time, etc. Today, we're going to do that hypothesis-driven hunt. And we're going to be looking at our firewall data. But before we do, I want to talk about something very, very fundamental to Devo, which is how we ingest the data. We talk about really high speeds of ingestion. So how do we do that? Well, we don't index the data on the way in. We don't index the logs. And in fact, we store all of your logs in their raw format on disk in our cloud. What we do is we categorize the data on the way in. And we categorize it based on things like what type of technology it is. You can see that here in that first column. The technology. Is it authentication? Has it got something to do with directory services or domains or EDR? Has it got something to do with a network or proxy? The next thing we do is we categorize it based on what brand that technology is. So maybe it's Apache, maybe it's something to do with CrowdStrike or Google Suite. And then what type of information it is, and then a subtype of information. At Devo, we call those tags. Now there's actually 6 tags. We show you 4 here to make it very simple. And the beautiful thing about this is that we're categorizing the data for you and bringing it and presenting it to you in a graphical format that means that you don't have to have that implied knowledge of the data. Traditional tools will give you a free text query where you have to type some proprietary language in to actually select rows from a table with some form of filtering and grouping and aggregation type techniques. Firstly, you need to know that coding language. Secondly, you need to know what table you want, what the fields are, what type of field it is. Is it an IP address? Is it a string? Is it a number? We don't do that to you. We give it all to you and present it to you in a really easy way to ingest. So let's go and have a look now at firewall. We wanted to do that hunt of Russian IPs attacking us. So we're going to go and look at firewall. Now you can see what brands we've got bringing in. We're bringing in Cisco, Juniper, Palo Alto, Sophos, etc. If I was to go and look at a Palo, I can see I'm bringing in traffic data. If I go and look at something like my Juniper, I'm bringing in SSG. You'll also notice that we have this thing called all. And then we have these here. So what we're doing here is we're actually creating a union table. So all the technologies. So you don't have to actually build your own union scripts or whatever you need to do in your own technology. We're doing it all for you. In the case of traffic logs, for example, you can see here all of the different technologies that we're bringing together to give you traffic logs. So you don't have to go and look at each of these individually. You don't have to write your own code to go and pull them all together. We're doing it all for you. Additionally, I talked about the fact that you don't have to have implied knowledge of the fields. I can see all the fields. I can see what type they are. If I want to, I can choose just the ones I want to see, or I can choose them all. Very simply, I can just click on this and it's going to take me directly into this table. Now, I mentioned we don't index the data on the way in, but what you're going to see now is a view of the data presented to you in column format. How do we do that if we haven't indexed it? Well, those tags, store them into a particular place on the disk. Then when we present it to you in real time now, we parse that information based on pre-built parsers. And those parsers we build for you. If there isn't one out of the box, we will build one for you. If there's something very unique to your environment, it takes no more than 5 to 10 minutes to build your own parser should you need to. But you can see here now we have firewall traffic coming from all the different technologies. I can have a look at all the different sources. I'm seeing all my Juniper, Palo, everything in here. So that's great. Let's move on quickly to our demo, our hypothesis-driven hunt. So we know that the source IP is coming from Russia. So what we want to do is we want to filter firstly on public addresses here. So we're going to use a bunch of different tools that we've presented here. We have the most commonly used tools presented in the toolbar. However, we have a whole bunch of other tools available to you here on the side. Today, we're going to use the filter, and we're going to filter for public IP addresses. Simple. So I've just asked, is this source IP public? And you'll see it's actually written the code for me. I didn't have to write the code. I just did some selections. Now, I want my destination IP to be private addresses. So I can come along and do the same thing. So I can come along and say, show me all my private addresses. So with very, very minimal effort, I've now restricted all of my traffic to external coming to internal. Now I want to do some additional things now. So maybe I want to take my source IP and I want to group it. So instead of seeing multiple of the same IP, I only want to see one instance of each of those IP. Maybe I want to do it time-based and I want to say every hour, tell me all of the different IPs that are occurring. So it's going to go off and it's going to do that. One of the things you'll notice is every time I do any of these actions, I'm not waiting for the code to go off and run. It's very, very quickly changing the data for me on the fly. Now you'll notice I've lost a lot of information. That's okay because we're going to bring it back now. Because now what we want to do is based on this, we want to do an aggregation or a count. And we want to count every time this external IP is touching one of our internal IPs. So we're going to do a destination IP count. So I've done very quickly, you'll see again, the code's been written for me. So now what I'm getting is a count of how many times an IP, external IP has touched an internal IP. And I could do something like, I only want to see anything that's above 10 in an hour. So I can quickly say greater than 10. Okay, so I'm starting to get some good information here about what's happening. Now I want to start bringing in some threat intelligence. I want to start enriching my data. So I'm going to add a field and I'm going to get the country name of where that IP is coming from. So out of the box, we're going to provide with you MaxMind capability. MaxMind is a open source capability that we provide out of the box that allows you to see things like what countries it come from, the coordinates, the ISP, the speed, a whole lot of information about those IPs. And I'm going to actually use ISO naming to give me the full name of the country. So now you're going to start seeing information about where it's coming from. I can now quickly ask for only Russian. Okay, so now I've got some information that tells me a Russian IP has touched my internal IPs a certain amount of times. It's going to go off and it's going to collect that. I can then go on and add more information. So while it's doing that, I can keep working. And I'm going to do a threat score now. And I'm going to bring in some threat intelligence by bringing in a threat score that's come from some other external source. It might be coming from VirusTotal or Recorded Future, for example. And so I can bring in a threat score, and all of a sudden now I'm getting some good information. I can see a couple of IPs here are touching us a lot, and they've got very high threat scores. Now I can go on and add more and more and more information into that, and I can also go and create an alert based on this. In the interest of time, I've got one that's been pre-prepared. Here's the cake I've baked earlier for you. You can see I've gone and added a bunch of different things in. I didn't write any of this code that's up here. All of it was me just adding fields, doing filters, etc. But now I can see all the source IPs, how many internal IPs they physically connected to. So there's one IP and it connected to it 500 times. Well, there's 4 IPs now connected to 1,300 times. It's come from Russia, very high threat score. What is the threat? What's the ISP and what's the longitude and latitude? You know, if I wanted to, I could do something like I could create a world map, or I could do a Google heat map, for example, and I can bring that longitude and latitude across, and I can drop them into here very easily and create a threat score and a threat name, for example, and I can see where it's coming from, and I can attach that into a dashboard if I wanted to. Like I said, I can create alerts on that, and I've got all sorts of different functions I can do. Now, we're not going to touch on much else, but I really want to quickly show you where security analysts would probably spend a fair bit of their time. So I'm going to actually switch my share, if I can remember how to do that. Chrome tab, I want to go to this one. I'm going to show you very quickly where a security analyst would probably spend a lot of their time. This is where they would triage the events. This is where they would do investigations and hunts and case management. So very quickly on the dashboard, you can see there's 4 areas of security operations vertical application: a dashboard, triaging, investigations, and hunting. So from a dashboard perspective, you can see that we're categorizing things by different MITRE attacks. We can see all the different entities that are doing the most damage to us. We can see where they're coming from, etc. If I come and have a look at triaging, one of the great things about what we do here at Devo is we group lots and lots of alerts together based on commonality, or what we call an entity. So here you can see we've got 6 alerts that have been brought into one based on a process hash running on an IP. So you can see some information about the tactics and the techniques, etc. And we can go in and we can look at the IP and we can see more information about it. We can see things like how much data is going in, how much data is going out, what is it connecting to, what other alerts are associated to this particular IP as well. We can then go off and we can add it to investigation. So maybe we want to investigate this, and maybe we want to go and grab some enrichment for this particular IP. So very quickly, we can go and grab enrichments from Carbon Black, VirusTotal, Recorded Future, whatever it is. We can add it to an investigation and then go off and do our investigation. Now, I don't want to go into too much more on what a security analyst would do. Here is an investigation about the comments, the detections that we've got, etc. We can bring in files of analysis, like memory analysis and PCAP analysis, etc. So Devo has this SIEM capability, which is where we did most of today's demonstration, which was around hunting through the data. So that's the SIEM. Then we looked at a little bit about security operations very, very, very quickly. Devo also has a SOAR function, which we haven't talked about today, and it also has an attack story generator. So an alert would have been one of those Russian IPs coming in, but then that would go into an attack story generator, which would then go off and pull information from EDR solutions to find out whether those IPs were connected to other alerts that are occurring, are there other things happening from those Russian IPs or those internal IPs. And it would bring together a whole attack story that could have taken weeks or months. And again, you can't get that level of data if you're only storing your data for 7 days. So 400 days of hot data becomes very, very useful when you want to actually start investigating the history of stories, of attacks. So very quickly, the Devo value in licensing. So Devo is going to help you increase your visibility. So we've got all of your data for 400 days. It's going to increase your productivity. You don't need to maintain a platform. You don't have to have that skill of knowing the underlying programming language. It's very, very easy to build queries, mostly no code. And we're going to reduce your mean time to repair because we don't index. It's very, very quick to bring it in, very quick to run queries, very quick to get alerts and investigations on the run, very quick to take those alerts and push them into a SOAR and triage or do enrichment or do responses. And you can't do that if you're waiting for half an hour for an event to become available. Devo's licensing, incredibly simple. Whereas a lot of other tools will watch you day by day and will pick the highest volume ingest for a month and tell you that's what you need to pay. Devo looks at it over 30 days and averages that out and says, over 30 days, you brought in this much, that's how much you pay. So with that license cost, you get unlimited queries, unlimited users, 400 days of hot data. You get all the vertical applications that we talk about with AI ops, security ops, MITRE ATT&CK, etc. All the support and training. You get full encryption at rest and transit. You get things like threat intelligence feeds and detections, all included in that Devo SIM. The SOAR and the attack story is a different, we license them slightly differently at the moment. So if you saw something today that you're really interested in, you want to reach out, you want to go deeper or broader on the Devo platform or the SOAR platform, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email there. I've got my LinkedIn there. If you want to reach out to the Devo sales team here in Australia or in Asia, I should say, apac@devo.com, feel free, reach out. We'd love to have another chat to you and go deeper into any of these areas or broader across the functions that we do. The other things that we could do moving forward would be to run some more platform demonstrations across a broader team or more specific to use cases that you have. We can talk more about how the SIM works and where we can implement it. We can talk about how the SOAR works and some of the functions and values of our SOAR capability. If you start getting very interested in Devo and want to move forward, we can also help to build a business case by doing what we call a business value analysis. We'll work out how much it's costing you to run your platform or how hard it is to run your platform and the value you'll get switching to Devo or bringing Devo on as your SIM or SOAR. And then we can run a POC to prove to you how we work and that we do work the way we say. So with that, we're right on the hour. I'd like to thank you again for taking half an hour of your time today. I do hope you learned something. If nothing else, you've had a chance to see what the new world of SIMs will look like. And again, thank you very much and have a great day.